I, 26 female, and my brother, 29 male, are having heated conversations about money. For the story, my brother's name will be changed to Matt. Matt was an only child, so when his mom passed away, I inherited half of my grandparents' assets. 21 months ago, my grandpa passed away, and I inherited the rest of my grandparents' assets, meaning that I have another house, agricultural lands, and a bank account. That being said, my siblings started talking to me about the money, how I should invest it, and what to do with it. I paid for my studies with it, and thanks to that, I could graduate this May. I also used it to repair my childhood house, so my mom would stop living in a crappy house. My house was nice to me, but after remodeling and changing the inside features, I noticed we lived in a poor environment. Anyway, I used this money to pay for my studies, which I needed to continue for another 2 years. I also now have to fix and repair the other house. While doing this, I give money to my brother when he has a hard time and life is difficult for him. My brother's a freelancer, so he's struggling more often than I like. When he struggles, he does odd jobs that help him finish the month and pay for his needs, as apparently his main job is insufficient. Following this, you have to know that in the past 21 months, he made me start crypto, which to this date, I'm still not comfortable using. So my account is set up so he'd stop pestering me. I also tried to create a business with him, so I'd put all my money into it and buy a flat with my brother so we could have a home. The plan was to leave the business so he would be in charge. The bank refused to let us have a loan, so the project failed. Anyway, now he explains that he's in dire need of money, that I don't understand his struggles because he's always stressing about paying his rent and needs, and I don't. Because of that, he wants me to give him a third of what I have in my account because this money comes from my dad, and my dad raised him, so he's as much legit as me. So, am I the idiot for not wanting to give my brother a third of what I have in my bank account instead of wanting to help him here and there? Edit. I'm French, as is my brother, and everyone in my family, so there's no will. The legal heir has to get 50 to 75%, and the remaining part can only go to a spouse or civil partner. A will wouldn't have worked here, as he's not on the family tree. Not the idiot. Do not give money to a crypto bro under any circumstances. Don't think of crypto as investing. It's gambling. You've shared more than you needed to already. Your brother's been manipulating you for money for a while now. Stop funding his life. He will only keep harassing you and become even more of a moocher. Definitely this. I think your brother's successfully siphoning money from you that he thinks he's owed. If he is struggling so much, do these things. Go to a financial advisor with him so you can see exactly where his money's going. Tell him to get a second job because you can't finance him anymore. You have to draw the line somewhere. You can't keep giving until you're broke too. Also, stop investing in crypto for the love of all that is holy. That ship has sailed. No one is making anything from it unless you start it with OG Bitcoin. Here's a question for you. If you were to see your dad tomorrow, would he be proud of you for keeping all of his money or mad at you for not helping the man he considered a son? He wanted to adopt him, so he saw him as his son. If he had adopted him, he would have gotten an equal share of his inheritance. The fact that you kept it all and just helped him out here and there, I think, would make your dad unhappy. You are the idiot for not splitting your dad's inheritance with his son, because if he wanted to adopt him, he was his son. Instead, his son has to come begging his little sister for money. My ex-wife, 42, and I, 41 male, were married for 10 years and had 3 kids. Teen male, tween male, kindergarten male. We got divorced 4 years ago, with no infidelity, just 2 people who decided they had to grow apart. To be honest, we as a couple were terrible. I'm surprised we were together that long. We are good friends though, and even better business partners. We own a small construction company, 50-50. Ever since we got divorced, we've both remarried. I married my wife 2 years ago, and she married her husband a couple of months ago. My wife is trying to play a parent role with my kids. She's trying to discipline them, ground them, etc. I've stopped her, explaining she isn't a parent, and the only ones who can decide those things about our kids are Elizabeth, my ex, and I, and she stopped. Last week, Lizzie dropped my kids off and let me know that Alex, teen, was grounded and couldn't have his phone, so she told him to go to his room, to which Alex replied, "I'm not in your house, you know, so I don't have to listen to you." Thus I said, "Go to your room, not because I say it, but because your mom said so. This might not be her house, but her word is as valid as mine." Alex went to his room and Lizzie left. 2 hours later, my wife told me I humiliated her because while I diminished her authority by not letting her play a more important role in my kids' lives, I encouraged my ex-wife to act like she was more important. By "her word is as valid as mine," I meant regarding the kids and their lives. It doesn't mean I'd let Lizzie disrespect my wife. Apparently, everyone is on my wife's side. They say that I should have told Lizzie that her punishment wasn't valid in my house. But I don't think that was the right thing to do. She respects my decisions, so I must respect hers. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. Your ex is more important. Those are her kids. They don't stop being her kids and become your wife's kids as soon as they enter your wife's house. This is the healthiest parenting I've ever heard of. Kudos to you and your ex-wife. Good job setting parenting boundaries with your new wife. I'm impressed. So the mouthy teen who talks to his mother with so much respect in front of his father, I'm sure he's just as nice to the wife when dad's not around, especially since he knows she isn't allowed to discipline him. You are the idiot, OP. If she can't discipline, she shouldn't be responsible for childcare. So have fun watching that kindergarten version of yourself. I would never agree to watch children I couldn't correct or discipline. Hope your wife realizes that she deserves more respect and care than to only be your housekeeper, cook, and bed warmer. My wife and I have a toddler daughter, Alexis. We both work, and Alexis has attended daycare since she was 1. In the years since, we've been asked to leave 2 programs because my wife is a micromanager. I admit, both of us went into the first program not really understanding daycare. I quickly learned that they couldn't provide personalized care, and after learning from our teachers, I reset my expectations. My wife, however, has a lot of anxiety and worries about our daughter. She hates when she gets even a little upset. She's in therapy and working on it. She's been diagnosed with PPA, but won't take meds. The first program, my wife would constantly watch the live feed and call the daycare multiple times a day. We had several talks about it, and the school talked to us twice. My wife screamed at one of the teachers, and then the director. We were terminated immediately. The second daycare was a little better because my wife began therapy, but my wife was still so nervous and had a complaint every single day. These were not important things. Small things like she saw another child take a toy from Alexis, and she would cry. The teacher would return the toy to Alexis, but my wife didn't understand why the other child wasn't punished. This daycare didn't kick us out, but eventually suggested that this may not be the best program for us. My wife and I decided to pull Alexis out. My wife because of her anxiety, and myself because I knew my wife had burned bridges and was becoming one of those moms. This time we chose a smaller home daycare as we couldn't afford another center. The woman who owns it is very nice, but also firm. She stands by her boundaries and won't let my wife break any rules, whereas the centers were definitely more accommodating. My wife would take any inch she got. This time, she doesn't get that opportunity. I thought all was well, as the owner only speaks to my wife for the most part. Then I get put in a group text, saying my wife has been bombarding the owner with texts daily, despite the owner saying she'll text her at lunch when things are settled. She said at this point, She'll only be responding at specific times of the day and not looking at the rest. The owner then added several pages of the contract with highlighted passages, reminding us of certain policies my wife had violated. I was angry. When Alexis went to bed that night, my wife and I talked. I said this was our last option for daycare. The other centers were too expensive, and this was the only home daycare in the area that we liked. A nanny's not in our budget. My wife made a million excuses, including that it's not her fault she's anxious. I said if we're asked to leave this program too, my wife will quit her job and watch Alexis, not me. This upset my wife. I pointed out I've spoken to her kindly about this plenty of times. I encourage her to keep up her therapy, but she can't keep getting us kicked out of programs. My wife is now not speaking to me. Am I the idiot? Edit. I cannot be the primary contact for daycare due to not being able to have my phone on me at work. Not the idiot. To be 100% honest with you, 20 years later, your daughter will hate your wife, and there's a high chance she'll not be part of your lives. Your wife is the exact definition of a toxic helicopter parent. She's going to ruin not only your life, already in that process, your daughter's life in the future, and her own life. This is 100%. OP's wife isn't just a helicopter parent, but a steamroller. She will steamroll any and all challenges their daughter will ever face, making sure that their daughter is either terrified of the world or utterly incapable of dealing with any kind of disappointment or challenge, or both. OP needs to do something now if he wants a relationship with his daughter and to make sure that his daughter doesn't inherit his wife's crippling anxiety. Also, the mother expected the other girl at the daycare to get punished? These are small kids, but she wanted the other kid punished in some way. There's a chance the daughter will inherit not just the anxiety, but also the expectation that everyone around her needs to bow to her and be bullied if they don't. Bet $1 million she doesn't want her daughter punished when she takes a toy from another child. A big yikes. Sir, your wife is making a choice not to get better. Her therapy isn't working. By refusing to take her meds, she's choosing to allow her need for control to override her child's need for development and education. She needs a different therapist who will hold her toes to the fire. Her child deserves it. She's so much worse than just anxious. She's selfish and abusive. And this must stop. She's hurting all three of you. I was estranged from my brother for years, even though we lived 5 miles apart. I knew he had 3 kids, and I only met the oldest boy, Dane, when he was a toddler. A few years ago, it came to my attention that my brother was going through a tough time personally and financially, and was fundamentally a single dad to 3 young children, pre-tween, kindergartner, and toddler. I offered him money so he wouldn't lose his home, and he accepted. That led to us reconnecting, although I reconnected with my nephews, who are now a young teen, tween, and pre-tween. My brother works weekends, and I happily agreed to watch his kids. It's no skin off my back. I've always worked from home and get paid a lot of money to do very little work during the week, so it's not a big deal to give up my weekends. Dane has gotten increasingly distant from me, and he admitted that he doesn't want to come over to my house on the weekends anymore. He'd prefer to stay home alone until his dad comes home. I thought it was a great idea, and it's better than having a passive-aggressive teenager who hates being in your house. I asked Dane if he wanted me to talk to his dad, and he said he didn't care. I spoke to my brother and said, what would be the harm in letting Dane stay at home while you're at work and the younger 2 are with me? I often leave Dane alone at my place, and it didn't burn down. He and I argued for an hour over it. I said I didn't understand his reluctance because I don't live too far away if there's an emergency. Everyone has a phone, and my brother even has a camera in all the rooms. He said he wasn't even comfortable trying it. So I said, don't bother bringing him to my house on the weekend. I'll just bring him back home if he wants. He accused me of dictating how he parents, and I said, someone has to. Yes, you're an idiot. if you drop a child back off at their parents' house, knowing they won't have supervision without their parents' consent. You can believe whatever you want, but at the end of the day, you aren't the child's parent, and you're trying to strong-arm your brother into doing what you and Dane want makes you an idiot. He's a single father to 3 children, and he's most likely forced to play nice with you because he can't afford formal childcare. LOL, forced to play nice? I would say it's necessary to be nice to a person you want a favor from. There's nothing weird about that. Also, if somebody drops a kid at your house that you did not agree to babysit, you can even call the cops for child abandonment. One could say, OP's being nice by dropping the kid at home instead. Why are people so harsh on OP? They didn't sign any legally binding contract, nor are they their brother's employees. They're babysitting for free. In this case, they can decide freely which terms are working for them, and then the brother can take it or leave. This isn't OP refusing to babysit. It's trying to tell their sibling how to parent. They think the kid no longer needs a babysitter, and the siblings do. It's not OP's choice whether or not the nephew needs a babysitter. Why offer to watch the kids just to try to get rid of the oldest one for seemingly no reason? As soon as your brother said no, that should have been the end of it. You don't have to understand his reluctance. You brought up having the kids stay home alone. The parents said no, and you argued? And then you decided the kid's no longer welcome because his parent argued with you? The same parent you know is having a lot of issues and having a difficult time. I'm starting to see why y'all were estranged. So here's the backstory. When I was just a 9-year-old and my sis, Jane, was 16, she got this African gray parrot, Pepper, using her job money. She totally loved this bird. One day she made me swear that I'd look after Pepper if anything ever happened to her. Being a goofy kid, I was like, sure, why not? Fast forward 20 years later, Jane's totally fine, but she got this killer job offer overseas. She has to move into company housing where pets aren't allowed. Now she's saying I have to stick to my promise and take care of Pepper. But here's the deal. I'm in no shape to care for a bird. I've got a small apartment with no outdoor space. I'm super busy with my job. Plus, Pepper isn't the easiest bird. He really only likes Jane and can get all cranky without her. To top it off, these birds can live for 60 years. Pepper's only halfway there. And if you didn't know, these things are loud. Despite this, Jane's all like, you promised, and even brought our parents into it. They think I should somehow work it out because Jane's got this big opportunity, and in their words, your word is your bond. I'm losing my mind here. I was 9. Yeah, I did make that promise, but come on, I had no clue what I was saying yes to. Now my family's acting like I'm some kind of villain. So, am I the idiot for not wanting to take care of Pepper, the parrot I promised to look after when I was all of 9 years old? Not the idiot. When Jane adopted it, she promised to look after it for life. And here she is, a couple of decades later, trying to pawn it off on someone else for her own convenience. Tell Jane that nothing happened to her. The bird just became inconvenient, so her 9-year-old promise doesn't apply. Jane is still alive and well. If she dies, I'm sure the OP will be happy to reconsider. Until then, the bird remains Jane's responsibility. I'm sure Jane knows that birds, like other pets, can be transported safely when people move, including overseas. That can't take Pepper with her is her deliberate choice. It's not a fact. Poor Pepper. At 9 years of age, I made a promise to love the pretty girl in my 4th grade class forever. The real idiots here are your parents, who allowed your sister to buy a high-maintenance pet that lives for 60 to 80 years. How stupid are they? In my opinion, your parents are the root cause of this outcome.